two people, both smart, both rational, neither trusts the other. And because of that, both end up in a worse place than if they had just cooperated. This is not a story about bad people making bad choices. This is a story about good people trapped in a bad system. And you are probably inside one right now. In 1950, two mathematicians at the RAND Corporation designed a thought experiment. Two criminals get arrested. They are put in separate rooms. Neither can talk to the other. Each has a choice: stay silent or betray. The catch is brutal. If both stay silent, both get a light sentence. But if one betrays and the other stays silent, the betrayer walks free. And if both betray each other, both get a heavy sentence. The worst collective outcome. Here's what makes this so disturbing. No matter what the other person does, your best individual move is always to betray. Betray is what game theorists call the dominant strategy. Rational people, acting rationally, produce the worst possible result together. This is not just a puzzle for mathematicians. The prisoner's dilemma shows up everywhere, in business negotiations, in political campaigns, in how countries handle climate agreements, and most urgently for our lives today, it shows up constantly inside the digital platforms we use every single hour. The structure of the trap is always the same. The players just change. The book that really opened this up for a general audience is The Evolution of Cooperation by Robert Axelrod. Axelrod ran a famous computer tournament. Programs competed in repeated prisoner's dilemma games. The winner was the simplest strategy of all. Cooperate first, then do whatever the other player did last round. He called it tit for tat, simple, powerful, and hard to maintain in real markets. Let's start with something concrete. You are a third-party seller on Amazon. You sell a phone charger for $12. You have a competitor selling the same product for $12.50. An algorithm notices. Your algorithm drops your price to $11.80. Their algorithm responds. Within hours, both of you are selling at $9. Nobody planned this. Nobody wanted this. This is the prisoner's dilemma running at machine speed. Each seller's rational move is to undercut the competitor. But when every seller does it simultaneously, margins collapse for everyone. Amazon profits because volume goes up and customers get low prices. The sellers, they often end up below cost. There is even a documented case where two booksellers drove a biology textbook to $23 million through runaway algorithmic bidding. $23 million for a used science book. Not because anyone wanted to pay that, because two algorithms were each trying to stay just above the other, assuming demand would hold. It did not, but neither bot had the intelligence to stop. This is what happens when you remove the human pause from a dilemma that requires judgment. The math just runs. Airlines do this too. Seat pricing algorithms monitor competitors in real time and adjust thousands of times a day. Sometimes this benefits travelers with lower fares, but during peak demand, all airlines raise prices simultaneously. Nobody is colluding. Each is just responding rationally to the same signals. The outcome looks like coordination because the incentive structure forces everyone toward the same move. Tools like Jungle Scout or Helium 10, which Amazon sellers use to track competitor pricing, essentially help you play this game faster. They are not the problem. The problem is the structure of the game itself. When your best individual strategy leads to collective harm, adding more data and speed does not solve the dilemma. It just accelerates it. Now, let's talk about content. You are a creator on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. You have noticed that outrage performs better than nuance. Conflict performs better than calm. Extremes get more shares than middle ground. You know this is making the platform worse. But if you stop, the creator next to you does not stop, and they grow while you shrink. This is the prisoner's dilemma for attention. Every creator faces it. Post responsible content and the algorithm buries you. Post inflammatory content and you grow. If everyone chooses responsible content together, the platform becomes healthier and everyone benefits from a better ecosystem. But no single creator can afford to cooperate unilaterally while others defect. So everyone defects and everyone loses long term. The platforms know this. Tristan Harris, a former design ethicist at Google, has spent years documenting how engagement-optimized algorithms systematically reward this kind of escalation. His argument, which he made famous through the documentary The Social Dilemma, is that The platform is a player in this game too, and its incentive is not your well-being, it is your attention. Here is a real example. During the 2016 and 2020 election cycles, Facebook's internal research found that its algorithm was actively amplifying divisive political content because it generated more engagement. Employees reportedly raised concerns internally, but changing the algorithm meant reducing engagement metrics, and lower engagement meant lower ad revenue. The rational business choice was to keep the algorithm running. This is a multiplayer prisoner's dilemma. Creators, platforms, advertisers, and users are all in it at once. Each group is making individually rational decisions. Creators chase reach, platforms chase engagement, advertisers chase conversions, users chase stimulation, and together they build something that none of them honestly are proud of. The system is the problem, not any single player. The book Hooked by Nir Eyal actually describes the psychology behind these loops from the inside. Eyal wrote it as a design manual for building habit-forming products. He later wrote a follow-up called Indistractable, partly grappling with the consequences of what he helped normalize. Even the people who built these systems found themselves trapped in the outcomes they created. Now, let's go to a harder problem: content moderation. Every major platform has to decide what speech is allowed and what gets removed. This sounds simple until you realize it is actually one of the most complex prisoner's dilemmas in existence. With billions of posts, no human team can review everything. So platforms use automated systems trained on past decisions. Here is the dilemma for platforms. If you moderate too little, harmful content spreads. Advertisers leave, regulators get angry, trust erodes. If you moderate too much, you silence legitimate speech. Users feel censored. Competing platforms with lighter rules attract your users away. Both choices carry serious costs, and there is no neutral middle that satisfies everyone. This becomes a multi-platform prisoner's dilemma. Imagine Facebook tightens its rules on misinformation. Some users migrate to platforms with looser standards. Those platforms grow. Facebook loses market share. So the rational response for Facebook is to loosen rules to stay competitive. Every platform races toward the lowest common denominator, not because they want to, because the incentive structure demands it. This is exactly what happened with vaccine misinformation in 2021. Platforms were under pressure to remove false health content. Some did not. Users moved to wherever the content was still available. The information did not disappear. It just migrated to a less regulated space. Moderation without coordination across platforms is like banning something in one city while it remains legal everywhere else. Game theory actually offers a framework for solving this. When players interact repeatedly and when they can observe what others do, cooperation becomes more stable. This is called the iterated game. Platforms that coordinate moderation standards instead of competing on permissiveness break the race to the bottom. The European Union's Digital Services Act is essentially a forced coordination mechanism, an externally imposed rule to escape the dilemma. But here is what regulation cannot fully solve. The individual user is also playing this game. You know that clicking outrage content rewards the algorithm. You know it. But in the moment, you click anyway, because the content is designed to be compelling, because resisting requires effort, and because one click from you will not change the system. So you click. Multiply that by 2 billion users. This is what makes the social media version of this dilemma so difficult. In the original Prisoner's Dilemma, there are two players. You can imagine negotiating, building trust, finding an exit. When there are 2 billion players each making micro decisions 100 times a day, the scale of the coordination problem becomes almost incomprehensible. No single actor has enough leverage to fix it alone. And yet cooperation does emerge sometimes. Wikipedia is a prisoner's dilemma that mostly works. Everyone could free ride and consume without contributing, but enough people contribute that the resource survives. Open source software is the same. Linux exists because enough developers chose to cooperate even when they did not have to. These are real counterexamples to the pessimistic reading of game theory. The difference in those cases is that players can see each other, reputation matters, and there is a shared identity around the project. These conditions make defection costly in ways that anonymous platforms do not. Anonymity is not neutral. It changes the payoff structure of every interaction. It makes the prisoner's dilemma harder to escape because defecting has almost no social cost. So where does that leave us? The prisoner's dilemma is not a reason to despair. It is a diagnostic tool. When you see a system producing bad outcomes despite individually rational behavior, you are probably looking at a dilemma structure. The question is not who is to blame. The question is what rules, what incentives, what transparency would change the payoff matrix enough to make cooperation stable. Understanding the structure of a trap is the first step to not being trapped by it. As a creator, recognizing that the algorithm is a player in your game changes how you think about your strategy. As a user, knowing that your attention is the resource being extracted changes how you decide to spend it. Awareness does not solve the dilemma, but it gives you a chance. If this changed how you see the systems around you, share it with someone who needs to see it too. That is actually a small act of cooperation in a world full of defection. Subscribe for more videos on math, behavior, and technology, and drop a comment below. Where do you see the prisoner's dilemma in your own life? I read every one.